I'm working on some plant medicine today and thought I would show you how I'm finishing up a tincture, and then I'll show you how I make a tincture tomorrow. That's kind of backwards, right? So this is a St. John's wort tincture that has been sitting here for 1 month. You can see it's really dark. I had it here where I could shake it every day. All I'm going to do is I'm going to take the lid off and the parchment paper off, and then I'm going to pour it through this strainer covered with cheesecloth into a clean, sterile measuring cup. And then I'm going to pull up the edges to squeeze out any of the juice. Now if you have a powder or something, don't squeeze too hard. You don't want any of the powders to go through the cheesecloth because it can just dirty up your tincture and it won't last as long. So now all I'm going to do is pour this into some dark colored glass jars. And then I store mine inside of a dark cabinet. But tinctures can last years as long as they are stored correctly. St. John's wort is wonderful for depression and anxiety. It is not for everyone, and so make sure you do your own due diligence to study these herbs and tinctures. I put mine in my bedtime tea at night, just 1 squirt. But here we go. I may have overfilled this. Let's see. There we go. And then make sure you label because they all look the same. It is so hard to get them confused. Anyway, here are my tinctures. Don't use a metal lid. It can get corroded. So I have my St. John's wort here. Next, I'll show you how I make a tincture. Okay, so I'm using the folk method to make my tincture today. Today I'm making an ashwagandha tincture. I already labeled the jar because they start to look alike. You think, oh, I'll always know what that is, and you won't. So I'm using dried ashwagandha root today. You can see that. Because it's dry, I'm only going to fill the jar about halfway. Now you can use a weights and measure method, but that's a little more complicated. This one's so much easier for me. So I love ashwagandha. It's just like its name, ashwagandha. It's very soothing and relaxing, great for someone who's struggling with like adrenal fatigue or something like that. Just very soothing and calming. It is a member of the nightshade family, so if you're sensitive to that, then use a Luthero or something like that. But I just filled it halfway, and then I'm going to fill up my jar with vodka. This is a potato vodka. Most vodkas are made from grains, and so you may want to watch for that depending on your need. So this is just a regular vodka. This one's 40%, so that means it's 40% alcohol, so it's 80 proof. So it does have some water in it. This is dry. I need the water to hydrate it. If this was a fresh ashwagandha root, then I would use a 180 proof vodka. You want less water because the water can cause it to deteriorate. Water is great if you're making a tea, but not for something you want to last for a while. So I'm going to cover it with parchment paper so the lid doesn't get corroded. Tap it. Give it a good shake. And then I'm going to let it sit for a month. In a month, I'll strain it just like I did the video that I showed you yesterday. So here's my ashwagandha. All right, so it's time to strain the ashwagandha. This one I made on April the 5th, and today is May the 5th. So it's been a month. You can see the liquid, if I can move it, maybe you can see the liquid's kind of dark there. And so it's extracted all of those components that I want from the ashwagandha. So I'm going to open the jar. I'm going to put this cloth over my strainer and then just pour through the cloth. I can mash it with the spoon. Here's my jar. To get everything out of the mark. Sometimes what I'll do is even lift up the corners and squeeze it. I mean, you just want to make sure that there isn't any sedimentation that goes in there. You want a nice clear liquid. And then I'll have to do it again, but for video purposes, I will pour it into a dark bottle. You want to store in dark colored bottles or away from light. So mine go in here. That's where I store mine, so they're still in a cabinet. So I'll need to get some more jars, but I'll just pour it in. Don't want to fill it all the way up. Oh, I overflowed it. And then I like to use dropper bottles. Just take some out so I can fit it in there. I usually, for me, consult your medical provider. For me, I do use a dropper full for an adult. Can't get the lid on. And you'll want to make sure you label it right away. It would have been even better to label the jar before I got started. But you want to label it. I have ashwagandha tincture. That lets me know that it is made with alcohol. I could have made it with glycerin. I'll do another video for that. And I put the date on there as well. Now, tinctures will last for years, but I still like to date them. Just so I know when did I make it, how old is it, and I can kind of taste the difference if it starts to taste a little off. If there's any sediment that is gathering on the bottom, you'll notice in a day or two, then strain it again through your cloth to remove any of that material, just to keep it nice and clean. Anyway, here is our ashwagandha tincture, and so I like to use it at night. It's very calming. You can use it any time of day for calm. Medical disclaimer, I am not a medical provider. I do not diagnose, treat, or prescribe, but ashwagandha is one of those adaptogens that just helps your body to handle stressors. And so that can be any kind of stressor. That could be some kind of trauma. It can be a chronic stress. But it is made from, ashwagandha is a nightshade. So if you do have issues with nightshades, then it may be better to find an alternative adaptogens. There's several out there. I just like ashwagandha. It works for me. It's just very calming and soothing. Anyway, if you make this tincture or another one, please let me know. I love to hear from you. Subscribe to my channel, share with your friends, and let me know what else you would like to see and learn about. Enjoy!